There comes a moment in every thinking person's life when the silence inside them becomes louder than the world. When the noise of conformity, the applause of the herd, the comfort of agreement all begin to sound like chains. You feel it, don't you? That quiet ache that says you were not born to repeat, to obey, to vanish into the gray uniformity of collective mediocrity. You were not meant to dissolve into the crowd. You were meant to stand apart from it, to burn with the rare fire of individuality in a world terrified of those who think for themselves. But before you can become yourself, you must destroy the herd within you. Because the herd isn't just outside, it's inside. It speaks with your voice. It hides in your habits. It lives in the way you doubt your own ideas before you've even finished thinking them. The herd lives in the need to be liked, to be approved of, to belong. It lives in the small betrayals, the moments when you know what's right for you, but choose what's easy for others. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the death of imitation, and the birth of authenticity. He said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But few ever reach that privilege, because to do so means to commit treason against everything the herd has taught you. The herd taught you to seek safety, not truth, to seek approval, not depth, to obey, not question. It taught you to live in fear of exile, the primal terror of being cast out from belonging. And so you conformed, you adjusted, you dulled the edges of your thoughts, softened the sharpness of your voice, wore the mask of politeness even when your soul screamed for honesty. That's how the herd wins, not through violence, but through sedation. The modern world doesn't burn heretics anymore. It rewards them with followers, filters, and fame as long as their rebellion is marketable and harmless. It lets you feel different while ensuring you never become dangerous. And that is how most people spend their lives, rebelling in aesthetics, conforming in essence, but deep down, there's a part of you that knows the real rebellion is not against others, it's against the cowardice within yourself. The cowardice that keeps you silent when truth demands speech. The cowardice that prefers comfort to confrontation. The cowardice that kneels to the collective lie because standing alone feels unbearable. That is the herd within you, and it must die for you to live. This death is not gentle. It will strip you. It will isolate you. It will demand everything familiar and give you nothing but silence in return. Because when you begin to step away from the collective, you don't immediately find freedom, you find emptiness. You will feel lost because you no longer have the reference points of approval and belonging to guide you. You will feel fear because your identity, once built on others' acceptance, begins to dissolve. And yet, this is the necessary chaos before creation. It's the fire that burns away imitation. It's the crucifixion of comfort before the resurrection of consciousness. Nietzsche called it the death of God. But he wasn't speaking about theology, he was speaking about dependency. The death of the old gods is the death of the authority that lives in your mind, the one that tells you what to believe, who to be, what to fear. To destroy the herd within is to face that death, to walk willingly into the void where no one tells you what's right anymore. To look into the abyss of your own independence and not flinch. Because freedom is not the absence of control, it is the mastery of the self. And most people don't want freedom. They want safety. They want permission. They want the illusion of choice inside a prison of comfort. They want to follow something, even if it's labeled authenticity. That's why even the pursuit of individuality becomes another form of imitation. People copy rebellion like they once copied obedience. They trade one herd for another, the herd of the different, the unique, the enlightened. But the real awakening doesn't come from labeling yourself different. It comes from realizing you need no label at all. Because the moment you define yourself through opposition, I am not like them, you are still bound by them. You are still reacting to the herd, still letting it dictate your direction by standing against it. True individuality is not rebellion, it's transcendence. It's rising so far beyond the herd that you no longer need to oppose it, you simply outgrow it. And that growth comes through suffering, through the slow, deliberate unlearning of everything that once gave you identity. You begin to see how much of your life has been built around avoiding the discomfort of authenticity. You say what people want to hear, not what you truly believe. You do what feels acceptable, not what feels aligned. You stay where you're dying, because leaving means walking alone. But what you call safety is a slow death. The herd will feed you comfort, but it will starve you of meaning. It will keep you surrounded, but never connected. It will promise peace, but only if you trade your soul for it. And when you live like that long enough, your life becomes a performance, a stage play of borrowed opinions and second-hand desires. You will start to confuse familiarity for purpose. You will call obedience discipline. You will call mediocrity stability. But deep down, you'll feel it, the silent rebellion trying to rise. The voice that whispers, I cannot keep pretending. That voice is your soul, and it will not be silenced forever. The moment you stop running from that voice, the moment you turn and face it, is the beginning of your awakening. But make no mistake, awakening is not bliss. It's brutality. It's the destruction of everything false within you. You will lose people who only loved your compliance. You will lose opportunities that depended on your silence. You will lose illusions that once made you feel safe. But in losing them, you will gain yourself. And that is the most dangerous thing you can become, a person who is truly themselves in a world built on conformity. Because such a person cannot be controlled. They cannot be manipulated by fear, because they have faced their own. They cannot be bribed by comfort, because they no longer worship it. They cannot be silenced by rejection, because they have accepted solitude as the price of freedom. This is the spirit that built civilizations, wrote philosophies, started revolutions, and moved the human story forward. It has always been the few, the heretics, the visionaries, the misfits who had the courage to see differently. And every one of them had to destroy the herd within first. They had to walk through the wilderness of isolation before they could build the kingdom of truth. They had to become outlaws in their own minds before they could become leaders in the world. Because leadership, in its purest form, is not about commanding others, it's about commanding yourself. And self-command is born from self-confrontation. That's why Jung said, the greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Because to become yourself is to wage war against every voice that tells you to be something else. It is to strip away the conditioning, the fear, the shame, the guilt, all the layers the herd has draped over your soul. It is to become transparent to truth itself. And when that happens, when you finally see the world through your own eyes and not the collective lens, everything changes. The opinions of others lose their power. Failure loses its sting. Loneliness becomes solitude. Silence becomes peace. You begin to act not from approval, but from alignment. You no longer ask, what will they think? But what feels true? And truth, once it becomes your compass, will lead you exactly where you need to go. Because life, at its highest level, is not about pleasing the herd. It's about fulfilling your purpose, the one that was written inside you before you ever learned to hide it. But that purpose cannot be found through imitation. It must be carved through rebellion. And rebellion, in the Jungian sense, is not destruction of others, it's transformation of the self. It's not shouting against the world, it's whispering to your own soul, I am ready to be free. And once you whisper that, the old self begins to tremble. The herd within you begins to panic. It will try to lure you back with comfort, with distraction, with the sweet poison of approval. But you've seen the truth now. You know that the herd is not evil, it's just asleep. And you cannot wake those who dream of staying asleep. Your task is not to convince them. Your task is to evolve beyond them, to walk alone if you must, to burn quietly if you must, to disappear from their world, if you must, until you re-emerge not as a follower, not as a rebel, but as yourself, the self that is sovereign, the self that answers only to truth, the self that no longer needs to be understood, only to be whole. And when you become that, you realize that you never truly lost the herd, you transcended it. Because freedom is not isolation, it's elevation. And when you rise, those who are ready will rise with you, not because you told them to, but because your example reminded them that they could. That is the paradox of the awakened. They lead by existing. They don't command, they emanate, they don't convince, they are. And that is what you are becoming, not just an individual, but an archetype of what humanity can be when it stops fearing itself. So destroy the herd within, burn the mask, face your silence, reclaim your name, because the world doesn't need another imitator. It needs you unfiltered, unafraid, and unapologetically awake. The herd within must die so that the soul within may live. And when it does, when that final voice of conformity goes quiet, you'll feel it. Not the thrill of rebellion, but the peace of sovereignty. Not the rush of ego, but the calm of truth. And that will be the moment you finally become who you were always meant to be. And once you reach that moment when the false voices fade, when the applause no longer seduces you, when your choices are born not from fear, but from conviction, you will understand something few ever do. Becoming yourself is not about finding freedom from the world. It's about finding freedom within it. Because you will still live among people, still navigate their chaos, their projections, their games. But now the herd no longer lives inside you. Their noise does not penetrate your mind. Their judgment does not reach your soul. You will still hear them, but you will no longer obey them. You will move through the world as something quietly untamed. You will speak, and your words will carry a different frequency, the tone of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to reveal. Your eyes will change. They will no longer search for recognition. They will simply witness. And that witnessing, that calm seeing will unsettle people, because most of humanity cannot bear to be seen through. They spend their lives hiding behind masks so fragile that one honest gaze feels like exposure. And when you look at them, not with judgment, but with truth, you become a mirror too clear for their comfort. Some will hate you for it. Others will be drawn to you, magnetized by something they can't explain. Your quietness, your certainty, your refusal to beg for belonging. They'll feel something ancient in your presence, a reminder of what they've forgotten. Because that's what the authentic do. They don't preach awakening, they provoke it. Not through words, but through energy, through alignment, through living in such radical truth that it dismantles illusion by proximity. That's why your transformation matters. Because individuality is not selfish, it's sacred. Every person who liberates themselves from the herd expands the boundaries of human consciousness. When you refuse to obey lies, you weaken the system that depends on them. When you speak truth, in a world addicted to convenience, you remind others of their strength. When you walk alone without bitterness, you show the world what real freedom looks like. And that's how the world changes, not through mass awakening, but through individual authenticity. One soul at a time, one mind that refuses to kneel, one heart that dares to love without control. But understand this, the deeper you go into truth, the lonelier the air becomes. Not because you are isolated, but because clarity reveals the falseness of almost everything. You'll see the manipulation in the media, the hollowness in success, the performance in relationships. You'll see how entire civilizations are built not on wisdom, but on fear disguised as order. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the price of awakening. You lose the ability to lie to yourself. But that loss, though painful, is sacred. Because truth, though sharp, cuts only what is false. It doesn't destroy you, it sculpts you. It removes everything that isn't you, until what remains is indestructible. You'll notice that once you begin to live this way, your outer life might appear to fall apart. Jobs, friendships, habits, and beliefs that once defined you will dissolve. But they're not falling apart, they're falling away. They were never yours to begin with. The herd gave them to you. Society programmed them into you. Fear held them in place. But now the fear is gone. And in its absence, your soul begins to rebuild not according to culture, but according to truth. It's slow at first, quiet, unseen, like roots growing beneath the soil after a forest fire. But one day, that silence becomes strength, that emptiness becomes fullness, that isolation becomes sovereignty. Because the person who has mastered solitude has mastered life. The person who no longer needs approval has become untouchable. And the person who acts from truth rather than fear, that person becomes unstoppable. They move differently. They speak differently. Their presence alone becomes a revolution. Because revolution doesn't begin in the streets, it begins in the soul. When one person destroys the herd within, they become the first ripple in a chain of awakenings. Their courage gives others permission to question. Their authenticity gives others permission to feel. Their independence gives others permission to stand. And in time, the collective begins to shift. That's the paradox of true individuality. The more authentic you become, the more you help the whole. Because authenticity is contagious. Freedom is magnetic. The world doesn't need more followers. It needs more free minds. Minds that think, hearts that feel, souls that remember. But to reach that level of freedom, you must keep burning through illusion. You must keep questioning every thought that feels borrowed. Ask yourself constantly, is this mine? Is this belief truly mine? Or was it taught to me? Is this dream mine? Or did I inherit it from someone else's fear? Is this guilt mine? Or was it planted there by a system that profits from my obedience? Most of what you think is you is just noise you've mistaken for your voice. Destroy it, not recklessly, but ruthlessly. Tear down every internal structure built on imitation until only your essence remains. And that essence, that raw, unfiltered self, is far stronger than you've ever imagined. It doesn't crave attention. It doesn't seek approval. It doesn't bend for validation. It simply is. That is your true power. And when you live from that place, you no longer play by the herd's rules. You no longer chase what they chase, fear what they fear, or worship what they worship. You realize that most of what the world calls success is just slavery with better packaging. You realize that the true game is not dominance, but detachment. Not to conquer the world, but to conquer the need for it. To stand in the center of chaos and remain unmoved. To be surrounded by noise and still hear your own voice. That is power, not control over others, but mastery of yourself. And once you have that, the herd loses all hold on you. You become something else entirely, an anomaly, a sovereign, a living contradiction in a world built on compliance. You are no longer a product of the collective mind. You are a creator of your own reality. And the moment you reach that state, life begins to respond to you differently. Because the universe does not reward conformity, it rewards authenticity. When you begin to live from truth, doors open that fear kept closed. When you stop pretending, opportunities align with who you really are. When you detach from needing, you begin attracting. That's the paradox. The less you chase, the more you magnetize. Because truth is magnetic. Alignment is power. And when you live in alignment, even the universe listens. You begin to notice synchronicities, subtle confirmations that you're on the right path. The right people arrive. The right challenges unfold. The right lessons appear. Not because you forced it, but because you've aligned with what was always meant for you. The herd moves by force. The awakened move by flow. And flow cannot be faked. It is earned through destruction, the destruction of the false self, the death of the herd within. So let it burn. Let the illusions crumble. Let the old identity die. Because what is born from that fire will not fear solitude, will not bow to the crowd, will not compromise its soul for survival. It will walk through the world quietly, powerful, untamed, undistracted, and unowned. That is who you are beneath it all. Not the mask, not the role, not the echo of others' opinions. You are the flame that refuses to go out, the consciousness that no hurt can contain. You are not here to fit in. You are here to remember what it means to be, to stand sovereign in a world that trembles before truth. And when you do, the herd will look at you and call you dangerous. But what they mean is free. And in that moment, when they look at you and call you dangerous, you will smile, because you will finally understand what that word truly means. Dangerous doesn't mean cruel. It doesn't mean violent. It means awake. It means you cannot be controlled by lies, seduced by comfort, or broken by rejection. It means your mind is your own, your soul belongs to no one, and your truth bows to nothing. That is a danger of a free human being, because the world is built on the obedience of the asleep. The systems that surround you, political, social, religious, cultural, all depend on one thing: that you stay afraid to think for yourself, that you keep worshiping their authority instead of discovering your own. They don't fear rebellion, they fear awareness, because awareness doesn't need to fight. It simply walks away. And when enough individuals walk away from illusion, the empire of conformity collapses from within. That's why your awakening matters. That's why your rebellion against the herd within you is not a selfish act, it's an act of liberation for the whole of humanity. Because every time you choose truth over comfort, every time you act from integrity instead of imitation, every time you follow your intuition over approval, you create a ripple in the collective consciousness. You remind others that freedom is possible. You show them that authenticity is not a luxury, it's survival for the soul. And that's how evolution happens. One consciousness at a time, one human who refuses to kneel. You don't need to save the world. You only need to save yourself. And by doing so, you become the proof that salvation is possible. That is what it means to become yourself. Not the self they trained you to be, not the identity shaped by fear and approval, but the self that existed before the world told you who you were supposed to become. It's the you that remembers the voice of intuition before it was silenced by logic, remembers the courage of curiosity before it was punished by conformity, remembers the wildness of soul before it was tamed by fear. That is the you that the herd buried, and that is the you being reborn. And make no mistake, this rebirth is not gentle. It comes with fire, it comes with exile, it comes with the loneliness of walking through the desert of your own becoming. But the desert is not death, it's purification. Every grain of sand that scrapes against your soul is polishing it, refining it, burning away the false layers until only the diamond remains. That diamond is your true self, unbreakable, incorruptible, untamed. And when you emerge from that fire, you won't even recognize the person you used to be. The one who needed permission, the one who feared judgment, the one who begged for belonging. That version of you will feel like a memory from another life because it was. The moment you destroy the herd within, your old self dies and something eternal takes its place. You begin to live from a depth most people will never reach. You begin to act with a clarity that makes others question their own certainty. You begin to speak with a calm that carries more power than any scream. You become paradox itself, gentle yet unyielding, silent yet thunderous, humble yet unshakably strong, because you are no longer a reaction, you are a realization. And realization is what the herd fears most, because the awakened do not need approval, they live in alignment. They do not seek validation, they embody truth. They do not chase belonging, they become belonging, because they have made peace with themselves. When you reach this state, you stop trying to fix the world, you start radiating through it. Your very being becomes instruction. Your energy becomes medicine. Your presence becomes a quiet revolution. You will no longer preach freedom. You will be freedom. And the world will notice, not through your words, but through your silence. They will feel it when they meet your eyes. They will sense it in your calm. They will see it in your refusal to play the games that consume others. And some will follow, not because you told them to, but because your existence makes them remember who they are. That is the highest purpose of individuality, to awaken the same in others without even trying. You don't have to save anyone. You only have to remain uncorrupted by the noise. Because truth, when lived fully, speaks for itself. And so, when the herd looks at you and whispers, "Who do you think you are?" you will no longer shrink. You will look back and answer not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. I am no one's echo. I am no one's reflection. I am what remains when fear is gone. That is what it means to destroy the herd within. It's not an act of violence, it's an act of remembrance. It's the moment you stop living as a collection of borrowed thoughts and start living as a manifestation of truth itself. And when you live that way, nothing can touch you, not rejection, not failure, not loneliness, because you will have found the rarest thing in existence, sovereignty of the soul. You will walk through life as an emperor of your own inner kingdom, unruled by opinion, unbroken by loss, unmoved by chaos. You will have become what the herd was always afraid to be, fully alive. And that is the true revolution. Not the overthrow of governments, not the destruction of systems, but the reclamation of consciousness, one human awakening at a time. So let the herd call you strange, let them call you cold, let them call you dangerous, because they are right. You are dangerous to lies, to fear, to conformity, to everything that keeps humanity asleep. You are the beginning of something the herd cannot stop, a consciousness that has remembered its power. And that power does not come from dominance. It comes from truth. And the truth is this: you were never meant to follow. You were meant to awaken. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to burn. You were never meant to live as one of many. You were meant to stand as one among none. So stand, even if your legs shake, even if your voice trembles, even if you stand alone. Because it is better to stand in truth by yourself than to kneel in illusion with the crowd. And when you stand long enough, others will see the fire. And they will remember. They will remember what it feels like to think, to feel, to be. And that's how it begins, the silent revolution that no army can suppress. It begins with one soul destroying the herd within and lighting a path for others to follow. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it beneath the noise, beneath the fear, the ancient sound of truth returning. It's your heartbeat. It's your freedom. It's the sound of you becoming yourself.